today to a question from YouTube. J336 on YouTube asked the question about Isaiah chapter 45, verse 14, which says, let me bring it up here. Thus saith the Lord, the labor of Egypt and the merchandise of Ethiopia and the Sabaeans, men of stature, shall come over unto thee, and they shall be thine. They shall come after thee in chains. They shall come over. They shall fall down unto thee. They shall make supplication unto thee, saying, here's the quote. Let me just stop right here to say the King James Bible does not use quote marks because it really is a matter of interpretation. Often like this, I think you can easily tell where the quote starts and where the quote ends. But that really is an important thing we could talk about another day, because I think there are places in other translations where they mistook something for a quote, that is the translators mistook it for a quote, put in quote marks, and then you automatically take it as a quote. Well, here in the King James Bible, that's the Bible you use when you put your big boy pants on and you say, okay, I've got to figure this out myself. Well, I think right here is where the quote begins. Surely God is in thee, and there is none else. There is no God. Now, that little phrase right at the end is the one that J336 wants to ask about. Surely there is no God. Some say this demonstrates that the King James Bible has errors. Do you have any insight into this? I would say it's not an error because that's what the underlying text says. The underlying text says this both for the modern text, the non-King James Version text, and the King James text. It literally just says, no God, no God. Now, you notice in the King James right here, there is no God, as I've highlighted over here on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you were to look in the Hebrew, no or nothing, nothing God, no God. There is no God. Now, no God are the only words there. There is italicized. Italicized in the King James Version means that the translators are telling you, hey, we're the ones that put that in there. That's not actually there. We put that in. And so you can take that and you need to interpret that, and you need to question the assumptions. And you need to make sure that we have done the right thing. Now, let's go, I don't know, we'll just choose here at random, say the English Standard Version. I've pulled it up on the left side of your screen. And here it says, we'll just jump to the end of the verse, surely God is in you, and there is no other. No God besides him. No God besides him. They have used a lowercase g here, whereas King James uses the uppercase. However, the King James does not use the uppercase and the lowercase like a lot of the modern versions do. So let's ignore that and save that for another day. So here in the English Standard Version, again, at the end of verse 14, no God beside him. Now, both of them say no God. Right there. No God. Come over here to the King James, and it is no God. Now, with both of these, no God, the ESV adds besides him. But they don't tell you they added besides him. Why? Because they are so trustworthy, you should never question anything that they do. Not me. I'm going to question. So here, I am alerted in the King James, let me come back over here. I'm alerted in the King James, the big boy Bible, that you need to do some interpretation here. That's what that italic says. It says, hey, wait, stop, put on the brakes, do some interpretation. Now, let's go back to the King James. Let's do some interpretation. Surely God is in thee, compared to there is no God. Now, I say, wait a minute, you can't say that. God is in thee, there is no God. Is this a mistake? No. This is the most basic presentation of what the Hebrew says, and trying to get this in the English language. Now, we could interpret it as, there is no God beside thee, as the ESV does. We would want to alert people, unlike the ESV, that this is our interpretation. This is just, a bald-headed preacher in Taos, New Mexico. This is my interpretation. That would be fine to do that. Now, to present it as, if I were to present to you my interpretation as the Word of God, I think you would agree with me that that would be problematic. And the King James translators did not even do that. They said, hey, let's put this in a different typeset so that they can see this is not the Word of God. This is our interpretation of the Hebrew that is given there. So there is no God. It requires, by logic, it requires you to say there is no God what? There is no God among the Sabaeans. There is no God in Egypt. There is no God anywhere except in thee, right here in Israel. So, I don't think you've got an issue of an error here. As a matter of fact, if you're going to take this as an error, I think you've got just as much an error in the other, say, there is no other God but you. Maybe that's not what they meant. Maybe they meant there is no God among the Sabaeans. There is no God among the Egyptians. Again, there are a number of different ways that you can do that. Obviously, they start the context, and context is always important. They start the context by saying, there is a God. He is the God of Israel. God dwells amongst them. There is no God that we have. You have God, and there we take that in its full light and begin to understand it. Now, I think, again, we probably do the wrong thing if we try to fix it. For example, we try to take the ancient Hebrew writer who's writing in Hebrew, which is a much broader language. The language of Hebrew allows and really insists that the context speak to the whole. And so let's take it and say, forget about the ancient Hebrew. Forget about the context speaking to the whole. We're too dumb to understand all of that stuff. So let's just put it down right here in the way that we think they should have written it. I think therein lies the error, not in that which the King James Version has done. Thanks, Jay 336, for that comment that came. I appreciate that.